Welcome, good people. Welcome, good people, to Flicker and Flame. Flicker and Flame, the idea of a small spark turning into an inferno. And you are going to absolutely have that experience today. I am so excited to be able to share space, albeit digitally, with some incredible minds and storytellers and poet laureates from across the country. So the invitation was this: we can come together for Women's History Month and absolutely share these incredible poems by the history of women poets, poets about women, about womanhood. Yes. But what if we talked about that one poem that made us rethink, reimagine, recharge what womanhood means to us? So, as poets, as storytellers, and as facilitators, and just human beings figuring it all out, we are going to talk about the beginning and the now. So I'm excited to have this space, and I'm excited for all of you to be here, and just know this is interactive. When you, just like if we were all together in a venue, you hear something you like, send us some snappy emojis. I think those exist. You have a comment, you have a question, we'll be able to include your voice in this conversation as well. So I want to get you as excited as I am about the folks who are going to be joining us today. So we have our, not our first, but one of our guests, Kim B. Miller. Kim uses her words to connect people to their strength. Kim is a facilitator. She knows poems to be instruments of change, empowerment, truth, and hope. She facilitated classes throughout her professional career in telecommunications, parenting classes for Prince William County, and poetry classes at correctional facilities. Kim is the first African-American poet laureate for Prince William County, Manassas, and Manassas Park, Virginia. We are also joined by Henry L. Jones. He's a poet, artist, playwright, and activist who writes and creates art about social issues, cultural connections, historical events, personal experiences, and spiritual relations inspired by roots of the African diaspora. His published poems and art have appeared in the United States and abroad in anthologies, journals, and magazines. He was commissioned, in fact, to write about the Southern church fires and collaborate on poems for the African Male Museum. Henry is the inaugural poet laureate of Hendersonville, Tennessee. Tshaka Campbell has toured a number of U.S. cities and across the globe. He continues to be inspired by the struggle of life, the uncertain certainty of the universe, and what it chooses to hand you. His wife and daughter show him the way daily, as well as so many other authors and poets such as Octavia Butler, Ben Okri, Rumi, and Baldwin, and countless others who spin language like silk. He's poet laureate of Santa Clara County. Tshaka currently lives in San Jose and continues to ask the world to listen different. And Rhea Carmon is a force that weaves passion, purpose, and power into poetry. She's a facilitator, mentor, motivational poet, and inspiration to all that come in contact with her. For 20 years, Rhea Sunshine has traveled the nation, sharing her gift of the spoken word and facilitating self-expression, liberation, and healing. This art form has led her to touch lives at universities and educational institutions, as well as civic engagements and festivals. Rhea is Poet Laureate of Knoxville. I know. And we're going to do all the things. We're absolutely going to do all the things. So I want to get into the thing, which is how we all came together, is to get an idea of the flicker. So I will be the sacrificial, as it were, and share my story first. So before I tell you the story, I'd like to share you this poem that made me rethink and expand womanhood. It's called The Too Much by Krista Bell.
So this next piece is actually going to serve as the verbal sage. The verbal sage. We're going to burn it. That's what I was burning earlier today. Y'all saw me, right? So we're going to use this to just open up the space and clear our minds and let something else good in, all right? Here we go. Y'all know this, I think. I couldn't have been more beautiful than I was last night. I couldn't have been sexier, juicier, or more luscious. My ass couldn't have been bigger or glowed more brightly. My teeth couldn't have been whiter, skin softer, hair shinier. I couldn't have smelled any sweeter, been nicer, skinnier, funnier, or more holy. And still, I was not enough for him. Not enough. My girls, my homegirls tell me will never be my issue. They say it's the too much that leaves lovers like me strangled by our own question marks. You see, some women love lightly like whispers wrapped in spun sugar, and these are the ones who make it so hard for the blue black molasses, everlasting taffy kind of love that overwhelms the tongue. They make it hard for those of us who, due to circumstances beyond our control, are destined to always overlove with a vengeance. We are the spell-casting blue magic witches mixing menstrual fluid into barbecue sauce. We will gather your pubic hairs. We'll gather your pubic hairs under the new moon and bottle them in our piss. Our territory is blood and dreams. Past lives in other states over which you have no control. Be warned, you will lose all control. So if you really need to keep it, if you can't keep it real, if intensity and complexity, if it just ain't your thing, if you can't handle this truth, then brethren, fuck you. Because in this house of worship, there is no room for emotions that judge and demand regret for our pleasure. If 48 hours later was too soon for you to be in my mouth, you shouldn't have been there. But don't you tell me it's my fault. Every way I am is divine, and I won't feel guilty. I just won't be ashamed, and I will not hide this story. My craft, it obligates me to tell the truth. And brothers, y'all need to know, if too much sugar makes you sick, spoils your appetite for even the smell of dinner, there are certain flavors of women you should not consume, because tasting even a little bit of what you know you can't swallow is just disrespectful. Amen.
Let the church say amen. And let the church say amen. One more good time. The first time I heard this poem, I was at one of my first National Poetry Slam events. So one, I'm new to Poetry Slam and the national network. And second, I think I may have heard Krista perform before, but this was also, I think it was the individual final. So all of the electricity was high in the room. And this poem blew me away. It felt like Roberta Flack strumming playing with my fingers, singing my life with her poem. And I had this space of feeling so seen and heard and realizing it ain't me. For all the years, all my life, all the ways I was too much, I was too loud, I was too weird, I was too something. And at the end of the poem, when she's talking more about sexuality, what's too much? And if we were both too much, why am I the only one being blazed for my muchness? And in this space, I was also in a relationship where I was constantly making concessions for who I already am. Feel me? For who I already am. And how who I already am that we're partnered together, how is that to anything? And hearing that poem just made me pause. I'm weeping in the audience. Thank goodness it's in the dark of the theater. I mean, I wasn't sobbing, but you know those hot tears. You're not even trying to cry. It's just happening. It was just happening, and it was powerful, a powerful moment. And I would imagine that all of us, but particularly we're talking about women's history, but I'd imagine, especially those of us who are creative, are tagged as to something. And we have to come to terms with what that means for us. So I'd be curious and really invite my guests, my peers, my other too much folks. How has too much shown up in your world as an accusation or maybe even a measure because there is a measure. I do have parts. I do have boundaries. I do have an idea of too much that I get to define, and then I got to decide what that meant. So just to my guests, how has too much helped you or haunted you? Or so if you put a finger up, I can see you in the green room. I'll know who to bring on up.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, since I'm loud, and I am loud, I've heard a lot that I'm too much, or, can you do it another way? And when I first started poetry, I was in on being liked. And I'm like, well, I don't care if you like me, but you're going to hear me. So too much is someone else's definition of me that I'm not interested in. Period.
And period. You're muted, Henry. You're muted, Henry.
I'm not going to be able to say anything muted. I've been told that I do too much because when I experience something or I found myself enthralled in something, I just become attached to those emotions and all the feelings, the moment, and bring it all in. And then when I write about it, it's just these layers of images and all that I place myself in. So that's my main goal. And I've had to learn that don't give people too much. Kind of pace yourself. And I remember a lecturer, he was talking about another subject when I relate. He said, knowledge, some you have to give them in sips. You can't just put it in a glass and then make them take it down like a shot. Just give them in sips. So that's what I try to do when I'm bringing out that too much.
Sips of knowledge. Yeah. Tshaka, what about your shots of knowledge? What's been your much or too much? What's your relationship with that?
It's funny because when I, bringing it back to sort of womanhood and such, when I think of like the too much is being next to someone who's responding to some other person, who's, in other words, boisterous, who's being themselves, right? And it's like, oh, they too much, right? They too much. And, really sitting back and looking at the fact that they're actually expressive. They're being who they are, right? They're in whatever form or fashion, especially as writers, as poets, talking about how we express ourselves and take the world around us, spin it to what we want it, and then cast it back out to the world. Who is anyone to say that's too much or that's too little? And so for me, it brings me back to that moment of hearing that person, are you doing too much? Or are you doing da, da, da? And I'm like, but are they? Are they doing too much?
Are they?
Right, exactly. Or too much for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And that's fine, right? Because sometimes my glass is full, sometimes my glass is in the, so that's fine. But you can't make this grandiose like, oh, that's too much for everyone. There may be somebody out there that can't hear. That can't hear. It needs to be that. It needs to be too much so they can hear. You know what I mean?
So that loud.
Absolutely.
I definitely think it comes with age and time and maturity, and it's a confidence on your why of whatever your muchness is. Yeah. I'm going to invite our other panelists. We're going to go into her story as well. So if you can give us a thought, Rhea, about too much, and then we're going to hear the story that prompted your ideas about womanhood.
Absolutely. I just want to bounce off of Tshaka and say that if I'm too much for you, then I'm not for you at all. Like I'm not the right person. I'm not too much for that person. So my husband doesn't ever tell me I'm too much. And all the people before him who said I was, they weren't the right person anyways. So if I'm too much for you, then you weren't meant to be in my life in that capacity anyways.
That's been my editing process, but it took us a while to get there. I don't know you. It definitely took me a while to get there. So I am going to play a poem that Miss Rhea shared with us, and we're going to hear what you have to say about this. Let me get myself together here. Boom.
my black girl magic. Because it is blessing and burden, holy and sacrificial. At any moment, I can disappear and no one will come looking for me. I can die in a cell, but the trick is I did not kill myself. I can make you think that I'm fine and healthy when my body has been kidnapped for sex cults. People think that my blood shines, that my bruises sparkle. My body has been poked, prodded, procured to find reason for my very extraterrestrial existence. My body has been raped, robbed, run over, run through like railroad track, mouth more whole than heaven, breasts more toy than nutrients, thighs more alleyway than guarded gates. I hate being told that I have black girl magic, because I can stand here decomposing in front of all of you, but you wouldn't believe me because black girls don't cry, we don't die, we magic. A lie that I have swallowed. A lie that I'm tired of carrying on my back, tired of being raped and no one acknowledging my pain, tired of dying and no one saying my name. You too, while listening to this poem, don't see me. You see black girl miraculously enchanting, so when I cry, it's spectacle. When I die, it's sacrificial. How many more of our bodies must be buried before you recognize that we are real? When Corinne Gaines was shot in front of her son, it wasn't glitter that oozed out of her body, it was blood. Sandra Bland didn't disappear, she was murdered. Jessica Savage is not okay, and to this day, 219 Nigerian girls are still missing. Black women are not superheroes in capes invincible to pain. We have simply adapted to our chains of menstrual, and men and their cycles. Behind every strong black man, there's a strong black woman that he used for practice. Black women are like stars, dying combustible balls of flame. Please say our name. What good use is having this magic if everyone is using it but me, Shalina Lyles, Rakia Boyd, Sandra Bland, Kendra James? I promise you, I can die just like you. I can cry just like you. I bend my back for you, loan my dignity to you. Black girl been mother before she was child. Black girl been muse. Black girl been tool. What was wings on my back are now just swollen welts. Spells are simply prayers. My blood doesn't sparkle, but no one cares as long as there is a show. That's that piece.
So yeah, that's that piece. Man, so I run online events all the time and had never really even heard a poem by that young lady until she showed up at an online poetry slam and she performed that piece. And it made me totally re-examine what is Black Girl Magic, and do I really want somebody to refer to me as magic anymore? Nothing I do is happenstance. And so that's why that piece just really hit me, and it became a flicker that has just prompted me to write in a from a more honest position about exactly who I am as an individual. So that leads me to want to hear from everybody else just about the topic of the invisible Black woman, or the magic Black woman, and how does that make you feel as women, and how does that make you feel as people who interact with what it's called, this look, magic. I put that in quotes.
Ooh, you done stepped right into my territory.
Come on, Kim.
Come on. I have a whole poem on this that's going to be coming up after. And I have talked about this, and people have, I've talked to women about this. And the thing I don't like is that it was used to be a compliment, but now it's used to diminish our accomplishments.
Yes.
Like, I didn't study 4 years, stay up to 2 a.m. and you go, Black Girl Magic. Okay, and you're going to step away. Magic wasn't up with me at 2 a.m. I was up at 2 a.m. Okay? Magic didn't help me with this quiz. I had to study to do this quiz.
That's right.
So it's being turned, and I don't want the people who use it the right way to take this negatively, but it's being turned to negate accomplishments.
I sit right in the middle with this one because it feels good. Right, Black Girl Magic, that feels good. And to Kim's point, you've heard it tossed in a way where it also covers, it becomes a blanket, easy placeholder for so many other compliments or even critiques that could be shared.
Mm.
And I put it in the same folder when Ileana Van Zant first came out. I remember just having this feeling, oh, you're just going to put notes on your post-it note on your mirror. You're going to write affirmations that you don't believe. You're
Mm.
going to give yourself these beauty power words that you don't act on. So this is a gesture to say that you're doing it, but not to make an impact. So the idea of Black girl magic and how and when it gets tossed did start to feel like that. But at its root, it's the Black girl part. So it's almost redundant. It's magic magic. We're saying the same thing. It's magic magic.
I like that.
I wish they changed it to Black excellence as opposed to magic, because when I speak to kids who don't feel like they have the magic, they kind of figure out, well, what happened to me? So
Yeah.
it's not that the statement in its entirety is negative. It's just that I think the usage of it and how it's adapted by different people has turned a corner that we have to recognize.
Well, we used to say Black excellence. Around February, they kind of showcase all of these Black achievements and things. And I think that statement just was a slogan, as we said, just to kind of get you happy and make you feel good and all. A slogan that seemed to join women, saying, yeah, we did it again type thing. But we have 3 daughters, and I know my youngest, she does not like that statement. And I mean, I agree, because as Kim said, you were there studying and all, there was nothing magical. You just snap fingers and didn't have to open a book. And, please, I wish it was that easy. But we have to, definitely, males and females, say, look, do that work. Achieve what you need to achieve. It ain't nothing magic. Yeah.
I'm in the boat of kind of with Dasha in sort of in the middle, right? Because I understand if I look at it from like a funnel perspective, right? There's the top part, and where you are, Kim and Rhea, about like all the back end pieces. Like, don't just regulate me to that magic piece. But and I'll talk about this later on. A lot of my work now is perspective through. I've got a 12-year-old girl, right? A 12-year-old daughter, and so when I think of years when this started coming up, and folks started talking about Black girl magic. For me, it was a very direct way for her to understand her greatness. Right? I can teach her lessons about who she is, where she comes from, blah blah blah. But in one statement that she understood, right away, it was something. It was almost like, when you have when folks in the Olympics and they on the starters block, right? And there's the first thing, and then they get up, and then they arc, right? Black girl magic for me with her was the arc, right? Then the gun going off was this: where your grandmother from? This is this is your history, blah blah blah, and that gives the momentum. But for me, it was an easy way to get her to, like, without anything else, just like, you're fantastic. Like, it's everything that's magical, that's you, right? And it was just a quick way to get that in her. And so it was my, like, it's Tuesday 1:30, Black girl magic. It's Friday 4:00, Black girl. You know what I mean? So I absolutely agree with you. It just, maybe I was using it as a crutch, and I need to do more. But it worked to just let her know that, as she's moving through the world.
All day, every day. I think we were saying it's a place to start, but we definitely can't stop there. We can't stop there.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Tshaka, I'm going to keep you on the screen.
Okay.
So we definitely wanted to have this conversation because poetics happen in all of our body forms. But talking about women and womanhood, to definitely have some brother energy and brother perspective. I was so curious to hear what your Flickr story is going to be.
Well, I got 2 things to say. First of all, when I got the invite, I was completely honored and scared as hell. Right? And probably be a question I'll pose later on, because just in terms of when you have a male sort of conversation, or male having a conversation about womanhood and what that means and how that um, influences you, and in the current environment that we're sitting in now, where um, there's a lot that's attached to language. There's a lot attached to definitions and identity. And I don't want to be mansplaining. So um, the approach I took was to look at it through the perspective, again, going back to my daughter, right? And the flicker moment for me, this was some years ago. She must have been, God, I think she might have been about 2 or so, and I was living in England at the time. And there was there's an article that came out, this club called District in London, and it was this big thing about these 4 girls got turned away from being able to come into the club because basically because they were Black, because they were of color, and they didn't fit the image that they wanted in that club. And I was already pissed off at it for happening in the first place. But then it went even further, that when the PR person, the owner of the club, were taking the task about it, they were like, look, I have every right to let who I want enter this establishment. We have a certain we have a certain sort of standard that we let in, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a club that a lot of famous people go to when they come into London. So, it made me think, and what sparked, the flicker for that poem was, looking at my 2-3-year-old at the time and saying to myself, what if she came home from that and that happened to her? What would I tell her? Like, what would my response be? And so that was sort of the genesis around what drove me to look at not only that situation, but just kind of womanhood as a whole, and how spaces are created and or not created, and dictated for the sort of the lanes that they can go into, and or that are allowed to. And so that's something that I've just been sort of analyzing and working through my poetry through the lens of my daughter, because I get scared to talk about it other ways, because I just, it's the reality, and maybe that's the question, right? It's about getting called out for it. I've been in 2 spaces where I've written poems that I consider. One's actually called Woman. The other one was called I forget what it was, but it was a piece on Hottentot Venus, right? And in one situation, the one that was called Women, when I got off on stage, everyone, it was received well, but then there was a gentleman that was like, hey, have you had anybody call you out for saying anything in that poem? And I was like, no, why would I, right? It's not like it was a tribute, for lack of a better word, the same with Hottentot Venus. It was just like, there's this beautiful woman, this beautiful body that has been, when she passed away, they put it in a museum, put parts of her body in museums, and in that situation, I was saying that poem, and granted, it was during a Women's History Month, but I was invited on stage to do a poem, and when I got off, one of the hosts was like, hey, when I got off, they said, great poem, thank you very much, I want to hear from women. And I know that wasn't directly related to me, but when you put it all together, I started to, it's psychological, right? I start thinking like, what am I saying? And actually what's being heard, right? Because if I heard that from that gentleman, that's not at all my intent. And it could have been a focus group of 1, right? But it still makes you start thinking about the work, and it diverted me to start now. I was like, okay, well, now let me look at it from the standpoint when I address that, look at it from the standpoint as a father working through his daughter, right? And what I think she needs and the things I want to tell her. So it really shifted the direction in how I talk about things.
And so much of our human work, things get realer. Things get real when you have a proper name. to
Yeah.
attach to it. So
Yeah.
it shifts the idea of allyship to really recalibrating how you see things. I was teasing my husband in this past year. He was like, "Babe, these cheerleading skirts, they don't really have to be short like that." I said, "Yeah, you're right. And cheerleading skirts have been short for a million years. But now that you have a daughter in one, we're paying attention to how short they are." That's interesting, sir. That's interesting.
Mm,
So watching that evolution, and not that, and he's also held those. I have daughters now since they've been munchkins, but
yeah.
it's not your body, it's not your experience. So you're going to continue to shape what that means and what that could possibly mean.
Yeah. I mean, I want my work to have integrity, right? And so I've got to be really careful in those spaces of how I'm coming across, because I'm not a woman, right? And so I want to make sure that what I write has a level of integrity of it without, um, stepping astray, for lack of a better
And
word.
still honest without writing from a place of fear. So we're not going to
Right.
go through what stand-up comics are going through these days. You're
Exactly.
going to get these real
Exactly.
words, but we will have tended to them first. So
Yeah.
speaking of real words, would you share this piece?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
It is called Dua, which is Sinhalese wife is from Ceylon or Sri Lanka, and Dua means daughter. Daughters, my daughter. They didn't let you in the club. Fucking. There'll be 100 empty doorways growing fault lines in your palms. This is the way of ignorance. The envy will not set in your veins. Your blood been used to this type of jealousy. This gypsy confidence they endure is why their heritage fits like loose skin. It's not your truth. You Eve and they manufacture apples that look like home. Fuck 'em. Your roots, they want unearthed yet too ashamed to dig for. Once you vacant and your dreams homeless, don't fret, doer. They can't wash away what is stone. I need you to spread no. Spread no thick and sloppy. Spread it like gravy. Push it out of every orifice, out of your conjure. Speak slowly so they know your texture. Tutor them in as much big hip, nappy hair brilliance as they can handle. And then telling them again that you are the very blood that makes you freedom. That your absence will bleach their throats raw. That without you, their old wounds reopen and collect salt. Now some will say your hull too thin to float. Your body too vase to hold flowers. They just can't handle your topography. Your buxom can't fit within their edges. These origins done colored well outside the lines. Don't negotiate, it's their loss. You've survived slave ship rhetoric, and they've perfected how to make women refugees of their own bodies, yet back in their caves, they drink rumor from shot glasses and secretly want to be drunk on you, want to read your bodies like Braille. They want to walk your freedom on a leash. They cannot. Tell them that you belong to the rain so you can feed them should you choose to, or just as easily drown them where they stand. It will hurt. Yes, do it. It will hurt, but it's okay. You get to hurt. It's human. It's human to want to twist around their throats till dark continent leaks from their vocabulary. It is also human, but it's what they'll expect. They often mistake reflex for savage. You, my angel, remain anchor. In the subject of worth, you are immovable, and their guillotine tongues will always search for your neck, will search for your plum lips, capturing that mountain peak smile of yours. And even in the lick, they will taste the seasoning that makes all cooking worth eating and will want you even more. Now, in those moments, when the doors close on its hinges and they try to make you feel less than, I need you to see your thunder. I need you to know that you are heaven noise. Because calm is like stop, and stop is death, and you are life itself. A blackberry stain and permanent. You are presence, like a missing groove on a 45 spinning at 35 RPM music. A symphony embracing a collapsed lung, breathing it back to life. You, doer, are every welcome that's worth walking into. Thank you. Thank you.
Every birthday, quinceañera, graduation time. Oh, all the girls, all the human babies.
Thank you.
Oh,
All the
yes.
human babies.
Yes. Yes.
That's
That was
beautiful.
fire.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it took a bit, right? It was like I don't know like what, and it was a task for me. It was like, what am I gonna tell this little girl? She come to me like, in that situation, and so that was the flame. Like that was what, that's the flame that came out of that little flicker. And over time, of course, your poems evolved, but I realized it was just more than just for my daughter. That was daughters, right? That's what daughters.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That was marvelous.
Oh, thank you, thank you. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to pose that question just to the rest of the rest of the panel here. Is just you know, uh, walking. When there's one thing of like talking about this stuff in your space, but then trying to create this almost this like protective shield of words, for your loved ones. Like I'd love to know like the process, what things you think about when you're doing that, or if that's something you can think about.
It's 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 not hard, but you want people to get it, but you don't want to sugarcoat it.
Mm.
But I don't want to soft shoe it either. But if I say it the wrong way, then you spend too much time trying to get my intent as opposed to feeling these feels I'm trying to throw. So I get where you're coming from, and that's a poet's tightrope, as I call it. We do this with all the hot button subjects. It's like we're trying to get you to see something, and if we don't say it in a way you can see it, you spend more time critiquing our view than hearing this poem.
Exactly.
Yeah. But see, that's where it's hard, right? Because my moniker is listen different, right? I'm like, yes, I'm giving this to you. I remember having a conversation with Saul Williams about this one time, and he was like, I was like, don't nobody know what you're talking about, right? He was like, you know, he was like, I have to have faith. They gonna find it. They're gonna find their way. You know what I mean? And so, and that's what I mean when I say listen different. Like, yes, there's our responsibility, but then like y'all gotta work too. You gotta come to this space and listen different. But I get you because it is that tightrope, right? It's like,
Right.
is it a waste if you don't hear anything I said and you worried about this little part?
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Feel that? I don't know who else out there believe in house music. I mean, like, believe. Liking it is one thing. Do you believe in house music?
Okay, you gotta live it.
So,
You gotta believe it.
Tshaka has put this poem to house music.
Okay.
Do it.
So we're
They
gonna
didn't let you in the club.
play a little music to
Fuck 'em.
put a little vibe in space.
There'll be
And
100
with these
empty
multiple
doorways.
disciplines,
Mhm.
Henry's also a musician and a playwright and a visual artist. So we're gonna take a quick shift, and I'll play some more of this before we get out of here. But just want to let you know that we're doing all the things with all the words these poets are. I know, right? I see you, Rhea. So as we're getting this together, Henry, tell us a bit about. I'm going to keep you two brothers on screen and working in multiple disciplines. Because in addition to Tshaka putting his poems to music, Henry, you've also put your poems to visual art and music. So is that talking about integrity, is that an interesting balance for both of you?
Yeah, because it's another expressive dimension. And I used to tell myself, no, you're either going to do it this way or that way. But then I said, no, I'm going to share what comes out. So when it comes out, it has a link. Those two things bridge it. I don't think by adding something or collaborating with different forms of expression means that that individually that expression is not sufficient. I think it's almost like fingers on the hand. one finger can do something, but you can bring other things together and do more, grasp things versus, point and draw and so forth. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
why I bring the expression.
I agree. I mean, I think it's all disciplines. It's all artistic discipline. But when it comes to poetry and music, there's no difference, right? It stems from vibration. It's vibration, it's sound, right? And it's being released and then accepted. So for me, their poetry and music are in the same sort of on the same plane. And as you know, what's the universal language is music, right? So it's like folks can get into the music, the beat, the rhythm, and work their way. I mean, that with that song, particularly when it was released, I then started getting a number of messages asking for the lyrics, right? And I don't know that it would have happened the other way around with the people that were asking for it. You know what I mean? So it's like what I think it was Kim that talked about, like, how bringing your work to a way where people can hear it, and in that sense, sometimes people can hear it through music, and then come back to the word. You know what I mean?
Most excellent, most excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to have you sit in the green room, enjoy the snacks, Tshaka. Henry.
Yes.
I love that idea that you've got one finger. So we've got 10 possibilities of things we can braid together. And like you said, however this expression comes out, trust that this is the way that it's supposed to come out. I remember at one point having these scribbles that felt like poems that weren't going anywhere, and then realized that they were monologues. So giving ourselves permission to then turn into, and now I do polymer clay, and not to limit ourselves to what creating has to look like. And also everything that we create doesn't have to be commercial. So that makes it even more freeing to just get things out a bit. So can you tell us a little bit about your creation and this flicker?
The music of whiskey, cigarettes, and bullets. I know other poets and their work. That particular poem was inspired from something that it stumped me, because I heard on Facebook that my godmother died. And it was kind of odd, because when I clicked on the link that one of my cousins posted, that link took me to a website where all these different pop-up windows, and I was like, oh my God, they got me. They got me, And I didn't think it was real, because it was that link, my cousin, few curse words in there, and who I hadn't heard from in a very long time. So, and the name was legit, Gloria Jean. So, but the thing of it is, these were people that were on my Facebook page. So if someone wanted to create this this link to bring in viruses or whatever, boom, they got me. And that's the first thing that hit me, because I've been to news channels and I looked at the link. I'm like, I'm not familiar. And this is in Dallas. So I'm not familiar with Dallas televisions, news stations, and different papers and so forth. But I just saw all these different pop-ups coming, and I was like, oh my God, they got me. Well, I called my cousin, and it was true. My godmother was a woman that my mother knew since she was either 3 or 5 years old, most of their life. My mother lost a sister, and they called her Tippy, and she died when she was 6. So Gloria, my mother, and Tippy, they at one point, because I have pictures, they played together, they knew each other. My mother took it really hard, but Gloria had been with my mother all her life. I've dealt with gun violence. I've been shot at. I've been helping people. I helped some people dealing with not to be shot. And but this was the first time that here I was, instead of looking at the news or hearing the news about gun violence, I had this direct connection. And I think most creative people have this empathy. So when you hear or see something, you respond, you connect, you find a place, and then you find an expression. And I became stunned. I became numb. And what helped me, after thinking many hours about it, was to write about it. And a friend of mine, Amy Hoskin, she came up with this program dealing with gun violence because of all the school shootings and things. And she announced that, say, I want you to come on board and share some thoughts. And you know how things just happen, the right place and the right people come. And then I had that poem. And every time I recited it, and every time I looked over it to make sure the images were what I remember and what I felt, I was seeing her. I was seeing Gloria. I was hearing her voice, because we hadn't talked in a long time. And that was the one poem that it brought me to tears. I read it one place in public, and we mentioned about the tears flowing, and there I was, just flowing. And it's difficult. It was difficult for me to write. It was needed for me to write, because that is still an issue that goes on in our communities. We talk about realism. Gloria had a hard life. When I was growing up, I just knew her as Aunt Gloria. Wonderful person, played the piano, all these things. Became an adult, I kind of learned her hard life and what she went through. But out of all of the difficulties and the challenges she did, she overcame those. She got her life together. My mother passed in 92. Aunt Gloria was there. You know, I can think back different moments, and we speak of certain words and things. She was one of those figures in my life, would tell me these phrases and things. And she's a musician, so I think we click with that in that way many times in terms of understanding creativity. So I felt this hole. I had to fill that hole. I had to reconnect. And I felt her presence when I wrote that poem. And I feel like it added some closure. And it was a very painful piece to write, but I've reached people. I've reached people with it.
Absolutely.
That's what's important.
I like to tell my classes, and that's from little people to not so little people, that every time they share a piece, there's someone who needed to hear it. They either needed to hear that topic, or they needed to hear it from someone that looked like them, or they needed to hear that this wordplay is possible. 1,000 different reasons, but it's never for nothing. And secondly, we do this for us too, right? So as skilled as we are, and there's it's a business, it's a practice, and it's also a salve. In a direct way for us. So I appreciate you sharing that story. And if you would be willing to share what you can make through, and don't get me wrong, I got tissue right here. If we need to weep it out together, I'm here for you. But if you wouldn't mind sharing the piece with us.
Oh, I thought I was going to share the video. That's why I sent the video.
We can play the video. I'd rather see you do it.
Okay. Well, I have to look up the poem.
Oh, that's
not one of the poems that I've memorized. It really isn't.
Just 1 second. We can fix all of this. So we're going to do this. I'm going to pull the piece up.
Okay.
And while I pull it up for you, we're going to go back to this jam.
All right.
there'll be 100 empty doorways growing fault lines in your palms. This is the way of ignorance. The envy will not set in your veins. Your blood been used to this type of jealousy. This gypsy confidence they endure is why their heritage fits like this. It's not your truth. You Eve and they manufacture apples that look like home. Your roots they want unearthed, yet too ashamed to dig for. Want you vacant and your dreams homeless, don't fret, doer. You can't wash away what is stone. So spread no. Spread no thick and sloppy. Spread it like gravy. Push it out of every orifice, out of your conjure. Speak slowly so they know your texture. Tutor them in as much big hip, nappy hair brilliance as they can handle. And then tell them again that you are the very blood that makes you freedom. That your absence will bleach their throats raw. That without you their old wounds reopen.
My godmother, who was gunned down. I only heard a dead silence, which made my beating heart sound like God's angry thunder, looking for a mighty rainstorm to find and throw my tears into. I knew the scent of your breath.
We're going to try that with
would kiss
sound.
me.
I think we should do it with sound. I don't know. We could do it without sound, but I think it would be better with sound.
I don't know why I'm flipping through this book. I have it on my computer. That's that look like where your homework. I'm
Take
sorry.
it away. It's all right.
I am so sorry because I was like, wait a minute. Why am I looking through this binder? I have it on my computer.
Fantastic.
All right. So let me share that with you because I think that'll be more authentic. And the music of whiskey, cigarettes, and bullets, dedicated to my godmother, Gloria Jean Montgomery Rock, who was gunned down in her home in 2019. I only heard a deep silence which made my beating heart sound like God's angry thunder, looking for a mighty rainstorm to find and throw my tears into. I knew the scent of your breath when you kissed me hello, the smell of whiskey and cigarettes, beige teeth grinning with jokes, just to see a smile on my face. You shared your old wisdom, telling twisted lies of youth with a believable straight face, and tired eyes looking back, followed with a broken smile, then whispered, I'm fine. I'm fine. Got my prayers and gospel music, can play and sing at my piano. Ashes cover ebony and ivory keys with the line stray butts on the lid. Tease because you were black enough to cuddle in your own shadow and hide. Pretend not to be real and feel the hurt when they teased and sometimes pleased your ebony with words and later whiskey. Drunken days wanting company. No one comes to listen anymore. Wrapped in an old quilt for comfort. Fabric wings were sewn with love, lost in the pattern of loneliness. Thinking about the many days circling with laughter and sorrow, stitch after stitch until done right. She still hears the voices, that spot of blood in the middle marked where a new baby was born, clinging. And of course, clinging with those baby fingers, don't you dare wash this quilt. She can still hear the mother's cries as the baby screams, covered and cradled in the colors, chilly bones felt in the dry marrow, gets up to sip some whiskey to warm her bones. Though forever flew like coldness away, sits at her piano to wait for the music. Damn thing's just too old to play. But enough cigarettes and whiskey make the tuning sound just Right. Pretends the strings don't hurt ears as the music creates a deep trance. Her music, a balm of Gilead, made souls rise in Sunday service, heat waves no one seems to mind much. Played gospel or spirituals to break chains, make people stop feeling broken inside. Ladies fanning together non-stop. Strong women creating a gentle breeze, moving a Viking ship down the Jordan, wanting the doors of the church to open to be saved from this brimstone's glow. Her fingers got tired of playing, just waiting to go home and then eat. Enjoy the breeze of that big box fan which drips water in a yellow bucket. The dog slurps like crazy from all day. Later, the mutt itches and shakes at night. She looked and laughed at him, her familiar alcohol withdrawal days. When she screamed so loud, her song notes were frightened of her, but were protected by staffs and pauses. Until one day, they heard strange sounds, sonic booms inside the cloudless house. Gunshots flew inside on heated winds, bullets and blood splattered forensic art, drifting smoke above her fallen body. I only heard a dead silence, which made my beating heart sound like God's angry thunder, looking for a mighty rainstorm to throw my tears into. I knew the scent of your breath when you kissed me hello, the smell of whiskey and cigarettes, beige teeth grinning with jokes. But now, there's no smile on my face.
I'm taking my breath in. I invite all of you to do the same. Henry, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that don't wash this quilt. It just does as one as a writer to writer how powerful and poignant that image is. As a human who's also recovered from loss, aren't we always recovering from loss? These things that we hold on to, as gruesome as they are, connect us to a story. So I can feel the love and the loss in that, and it's a gift that you shared it with us. How are we doing, poets? I know.
Yeah. It's memories. It's memories you can smell on words.
There's a workshop I used to do with my students called That Poem, and we're just going to take them through this idea generation and a bunch of lists, and then boom, hey, this random exercise on this piece of paper is at least one poem that you need to write. You don't want to write it, but it needs you to write it. So this definitely falls into that poem. Do you have, and not to necessarily make it confessional, but that poem that you're still working on, my peers, that you haven't gotten to or not quite out yet?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. There's two poems that I will never do in public. So absolutely.
But you've written them already.
They're written in my head. I won't put them on paper either. I will not.
Staying away from the page.
Yes. I will never put it on paper. Absolutely never.
The piece that I'm sharing later on tonight is one that was in my head for so many years. And it came out just finally. I couldn't hold it any longer,
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a perfect time. Later on tonight is right now. What?
Is it for real?
It's for real.
Can I just say,
Yes,
Can I
please.
just say again, thank you, Henry, for letting us be in that space with you.
Yes.
Um, Even within it, the artwork that you put, and I remember there's a forensic art, right? That you said that alone, sent a whole picture into my head. So again, thank you for sharing that. Thank you also for putting yourself in that, you know. Yeah, just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, Rhea. We're all in our fields right now.
Mhm.
I don't know that this is going to keep you in your feels, but
Okay.
it was something that I needed to say, and that I had realized about myself. Like I said earlier, just learning to be honest and appreciate those things about myself that I at times had hidden away, and it came out um, when I started writing this poem. So there are a few things that are obvious from a first glance at me. The most obvious is that I am black, and I suppose you could stop there. You could allow that to put a wall between you and I, or you could see it as an immediate connect with me, whichever you choose. I fear you will have only scratched the surface of my essence. What will you do after the black? After you have judged whether I match or clash your perception? Following that initial reaction, will you care to know my story? Because you can't know immediately that I identify as heterosexual. You can't know that I'm married with children, that I wish daily that my children could meet the man that raised me and climb into his lap to call him Pops. That my mother speaks to me every time I cross her mind because her spirit is connected to me and she is my first hero. There is no way for you to know that I see the world in poetry and numbers because they are real and tangible. I express my love in one of these two ways to every person in my life. What will you miss if you never make it past the black? How many hugs that can change your day or mood will you miss out on? How much inspiration and strength will you fail to ever see? How many problems will you never solve? How much understanding will you miss? How much love? If you only see me as a comrade or foe, have you truly looked? I am broken by the people that spread hatred through their gaze, judging, pulling triggers, closing doors, forgetting to see human before difference, spreading lies and division without first thinking golden, finding reasons to remove a story by only looking skin deep. Religion deep, party deep, sexuality deep, paycheck deep, for whatever you have chosen your black to be, what will it take for you to see after it? To see one another as humanity, to know that somebody has loved or been loved by another, looked up at the same sky and seen the same sun, gazed into the night and shared the same stars, closed their eyes to sleep or die and met the same darkness. We are all looking for the light, looking through mirrors to see ourselves as more than a list of black that somebody may not accept. I learned to love myself. My dark skin and coiled hair, I find power in its energy. I don't always fit in where it seems I should. I keep quiet on issues until I can write about them. I struggle to let people in to love me, but I give love freely, trusting that I will never run out of love for myself. I fight my body against its attempts to break down daily. I am a survivor of more than this blackness. My father taught me that I was black and beautiful, making sure that I understood there is more after the black beauty deeper than this melanin. I will never allow myself to just stop there or even see it as a weakness or flaw. It is me as much as my quirky personality and a belief in a God without limitations. It is the understanding that I am made in that image and I have no limitations. I am creation made perfect just the way I am. So I embrace the flaws and imperfections, my hard days and my glorious transitions. There is nothing wrong with any part of who I am. Every attribute is marked with a part of what exists. I am beautiful beyond the black. I am Mother Earth with treasures in my words, giving birth to lightning, oceans, and fire. There is prophecy in my gardens. My father named me Rhea, calling me to motherhood, and I am more than that initial glance. but you will never know until you see me after the black.
Wow. Woo. You you did that.
Thank you.
I mean, that just there's nothing you didn't cover. It was just like I'm more than my skin. I'm more than this color. I'm a complete person. Don't try to put me in your little box.
Yeah, it's just like I grew up in a very kind of different situation than a lot of the black people that I had encountered in life. And my experiences led me to write this. And I kind of kept all of that bottled up inside, and I finally let it all out. And I think that that's what starts to happen. I think the first couple of times I read this poem out loud, I cried when I got to the end because I just had those self realizations like, this is me, and I am so much more than this, and I am powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And every line, I just like it felt like he was talking to me. Like I'm not just this. Stop trying to judge me as you're black. I know. Thanks.
Yeah,
24/7.
that part we figured out.
Yeah. We don't need the reminders. So, but what do you see outside of that? We're bigger, not bigger than, but there's more to us than our skin color.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Man, that was I'm so glad you allowed us to hear it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm going to do my poem. And it's funny because the poem she chose was kind of on the same subject of a poem I wrote. So here we go. And the name of the poem is Not Magic. I hate the term black girl magic. Now, before you roll your eyes, try to see through mine. Magic is a trick, it's a show, it's not permanent. So when the show is over, so is the magic. I don't want sisters to perform anymore. While others are pulling a rabbit out of their hat, we're pulling out degrees and we're still overlooked. We have busted our behind in every category: education, personal development, spiritual growth, broken stereotypes and watch you build them back. Ran on track and for office, and the only thing you can come up with is magic? This ain't magic. For so many sisters, it's depression using Maybelline for cover. Depression has straightened more head and grease, yet we persist. Not all charcoal burns the same. Black burns ain't recognized. Saying we are magic strips us of our accomplishments. Speaking of magic, how you keep making black women disappear? So many of us are missing. Is that the magic you speak of? Black girls have never been magical. We work twice as hard for less. You see, black girls are self-taught, but we don't go to no magic school. Our DNA is not made of sparkles. If you see some glitter residue, know that's us making way for more greatness. Black girls ain't magic. We're ancestral sunshine and black rain. We brighten up your day while watering your soul. But don't let all this magic fool you. We dive deep into darkness to show you this light. Our pain is not allowed, so we hide it well. Is that the magic you speak of? The ability to look happy while struggling? We are not magical. We are strength personified, encapsulated with perseverance. We just want to be our own definition of whole. I've seen too many sisters working to elevate themselves, so I cannot let you reword our efforts to make it effortless. Keep your salt. We only want seasoning. You can't throw shade on black women. We used to sitting in it. You want to say something about us? Say you never seen someone so determined to get ready for a party she was never expected to attend, and then show up and be one of the most majestic people in the room, all while juggling haters and she too much in her back pocket. Say black women be warriors for tripling their preparation for a single event. Say we are paintbrushes that don't need to be dipped into paint to show color. Magic don't make masterpieces. We do.
Period.
Oh, yes.
I
Ah,
love
yes.
the pieces that make you dig in for them because you mean it every time.
Yeah, I love it when she hit her chest at the end. It's, we do. We do this. Yes. Come on,
Mean it
Kim.
every
Oh my
time, every
God,
time,
yes.
every time.
Thank you.
I'm going to invite any random thoughts that you've had clutched into your palms back there in the green room, and also for those of you who are watching again, as you see your comments are joining us on screen, you are also part of this conversation. I'm so grateful to you poets for making time for this. I warned you we would get there. It was going to be a journey, but I love how these unexpected formats have us fall into conversations we wouldn't have been gifted with all the other kind of planning and structure. So if you have any other comments or questions, drop them in the thread. We will put them on the screen and our poets will respond or we'll talk about it a bit more. But I want to kind of give a round robin if there is any a comment you want to share, or if you have a event or something, a plug you want to drop. Start with Kim, since your name is on the screen, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Starting Saturday, I'll be at Atlas with a group of poets. Through day 8, we'll be at Atlas Performing Arts Center in DC at 7 p.m. If you're interested, come on by. And of course, stop by my website, kimbmiller.com. That has most of my events because I have quite a few coming up. I'll be going to Pennsylvania in a few weeks because I am also part of an artistic team called K Square. I do the poetry and she does the speed painting. Yes, speed painting. So basically, she paints to my poem. She creates a painting based on my poem. And when the poem is over, so is her painting.
That's fly.
Thank you.
We did something like that one year with the Fifth Woman, and an artist was painting during a show, and it's absolutely amazing how those speed artists do that, and turn out such beautiful visual art to go with your words. For me, I have online events all the time. Check out my website, rheacarmon.com. I also do some motivational speaking. So if you are attached to a school or university and you all want to hear some powerful words that inspire you to greatness, then hit me up. I'm your girl. But this Sunday, I have an event, the semifinals for the very first inaugural Youth Poet Laureate in Knoxville, Tennessee. So tune in to the Fifth Woman YouTube channel and see what these young people are going to be bringing.
Nice.
I have 3 featured events. In early April, I'll be featured in the Black Dog Poetry Open Mic. And then in the end of April, the featured artist in the Poetry Corner at the Scared Bennett Center. These, and then there's the Sculpt Open Mic Poetry. All 3 of these are going to be streamed. So I'll make the announcements on YouTube and other social media channels. And 2 of them, well, Poets Corner, they invite a live audience. So, yeah, that'll be my National Poetry Fund.
What's going on? Like there's a bunch of stuff, especially as recent appointment to the role. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I'm really in the basement. I'm trying to put together or put the final touches on on sort of this laureate project that I'm doing in my region. It's 3-part. It's called Bringing the Light, and basically the first part is asking all of youth, from K-12 to submit poetry about their experience over the last 2.5, 3 years, right? The pandemic, everything that's been going on, and to curate that into an anthology. Then the second part of that is It's going in. Part of those poems will be then part of what I'm calling bringing the light. The first one was bringing the light in our words. The second part of it is bringing the light in motion, and it's some of those poems are going to be um, put on the VTA here, which is like it's like the Valley Transit Authority, right? So the trains that are going through all of these neighborhoods to have these kids, the poems that these kids have written on the train on the inside and out, and just kind of traveling, having their words travel through the county. And then the last part of it is a kind of finale where we're gonna have a light projection on. Hopefully, I'm still working it out. Want to get it on City Hall, so putting it out there in the universe. But literally getting the poems projected on the side of the building, and so that we can, it's accessibility to art, right? To so have people can come by and see it, but it's all centered. Like my two mission statements are, you know, creating an avenue for the youth of the county to be able to talk about what they're going through. And the second part is sort of bringing these disparate communities together under art, right? So stuff going on from a performance perspective, but I'm really in the basement, trying to get some of this stuff done.
That's where all the good stuff happens. That's where good stuff
Indeed.
happens.
Indeed.
I am also so as I'm ending my term as the Milwaukee Poet Laureate, and with that I'm partnering with some institutions, and we will also be bringing the Milwaukee Youth Poet Laureate program to the city. So we'll start our pilot will be in the fall. So right now it's working with teachers. Our approach is going to be a curriculum, so it's a class. So we're getting those pieces in place and pulling all the purse strings. And as the state poet laureate, my project has been alignment. Alignment. So
Nice.
it's taking poetry lines as prompts and inviting people to, of course, whatever the story is that they imagine, write that poem and put it into alignment.org. And then they'll get a poetry match from someone else in the state. It's okay if you're not from Wisconsin, you can participate. From someone else who also wrote to the same prompt. So you have this evergreen experience of meeting neighbors through poems, and most significantly, many of these neighbors are incarcerated writers. Of all the outreach I've done, it's my favorite. So we were working really closely with a number of institutions and reentry programs, so that the folks who are inside, they can handwrite their poems, and we have volunteers that will type them up for them. So everybody's a poem, everybody's a poet, and I'm really excited that we're to see this project get traction. I'm so excited to hear the work that you all are doing, that we were able to share this really authentic time together. Flickering in Flames, talking about the ways that we have evolved and advanced our approach to womanhood. And all of you who are there, I know we're going to want to thank my tech team. Hey, husband, how you doing? For making sure that we were able to get in and out of these screens and work with these gadgets and such. So I'm going to share a piece as well, and we'll come back in just one power word before we go. Cool?
Can I mention two other events when Tshaka mentioned art? I separate my art with my poetry in my mind sometimes, but I have an exhibit that'll be up until March the 29th. It's been running since January, and I have 30 paintings and 30 poems. I wrote the poems for each painting after I created them. And also, this is later in June, during Juneteenth. I'm in a play, and I'm doing the set design, but it's about the Fifth Jubilee Singers. It's produced by Dream 7 and Arts, and it's from the perspective of Ella Shepherd. Well, I'm doing the set design, and then I said, wait a minute, I wrote a poem. I'm a fifth graduate. And when I first heard the Jubilee Singers, I was just blown away. I wrote this poem. It was in my first book. I showed it to the director. She loved it. So that poem is now in the play. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, I love that. Because it was like this needed part in terms of the ending and all, bringing it together. So I was really honored that she said yes, and she loved it.
Thank you. If you can, in our green room chat, Henry, if you can put the venue, we might be able to find, so we can find a virtual link. Okay. And while he's pulling that together, this is definitely a conversation about womanhood, and it's called And God Said. I knew I was a bona fide mama when I could settle a squirrely child from across the room with an eyebrow arch, piercing eye contact, and one deliberate blink. I called myself a woman once I realized the multiplicity of my thighs. I stopped rummaging around through my insides, splitting skin to certify my sweetness. With forgiveness and remembrance, my finger traces the scar meridian between wielding my currency and yielding, between grasps at eternal sunshine and surrendering dark pockets of moon. I knew my thighs and I were free radicals when I slid them
Okay.
wide at will.
We're about to work out.
Without
Okay.
smudges of guilt or coercing grip,
So
I
we'll
laid
work
down in beds if I could also afford to make them,
after we work
smoothing
out.
out the wrinkles, pinning corners, sometimes falling back in the unmade tussle. Last week, my husband named my right thigh Rogue, reckless to my left. In our pajamas, we laughed. He whispers kisses and redemption along the seams between my antiquity and the archetypes this world still needs me to be. I knew I was grown when I released those pinky swear links to Princess Diary dreams never intended for little brown girls like me. I mourned half a lifetime of half hearted advice about queenly dreams I was supposed to borrow and never own. I folded myself across the ley lines of Black woman, scratched a crown into the air above my head with my index finger. I arranged healing stones along my tongue and pulled out the apologies lodged into my throat. I retold myself to myself, relearning the parts of my story recited all wrong to me in the first place. I knew I was sheer energy when I spoke truth into resistance, fixed my mouth around freedom songs and thrive music, refused the dirty dancing franchise, shoving chocolate babies into corners, into second guessing, into subsisting, into settling for the toxic crumbs of love, into standing at the edges of legacy, waiting to be seen, into existing anywhere beneath my station. Stellar. My native tongue traces a dynasty to Andromeda, to Gaia. I mother the ocean, the wind, and the sky. My words coax light through layered shadows, and I can stir demise in the shallow of my palm. With the flick of my tongue's tip, I script life in cursive multiverse. I knew I was a deity when I saw my breath split across a blade of grass and vibrate out a song. God once said, "Let there be," and I have been manifesting ever since.
I have been manifesting ever since. That, ooh,
That was good.
yes.
I love that.
Ever
Yes.
since. Thank you, thank you for being here, for our digital audience for being here. One power word as we close out this space. Kim, give us a power word.
Since it is Women's History Month, I'll end with a haiku. Haiku. Short poem, 17 syllables. This is actually Senryu. I don't have time for the full explanation because it takes longer than the poem. Okay. Haiku. Strong women are not unbreakable. We just know you ain't the hammer.
Oh,
Miss Ray.
My word is always going to be inspiration.
Thank you. Brother Henry.
Reaching. Determination. No, determination.
You can make it a hyphen. It's your world.
Reaching toward determination. Determined to reach. Flip it around.
And Tshaka.
Everything.
Everything.
That's it. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. This has been everything. Thank you all for being here. We're going to let these comments roll. We're going to keep this track coming on. Did I mention believing in house music? I don't know if I said that, but you should.
Indeed.